Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to another live session with me, Al Parsai, in the area of immigration to Canada. What I'm going to do today, I will talk about the express entry system because we received so many questions about express entry, and I just want to explain the system to you and whether it applies to you and how you can apply under this program. And at the same time, we will also focus on the latest news in the world of immigration. And if somebody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions as well. In some platforms like YouTube, you can post your questions, and I see them here. I see now a message from LinkedIn as well. I thought that LinkedIn is not working, but it looks like it's working. Hi, Satish. Good to see you here. And we will also answer your questions. Remember that this session does not constitute uh, immigration advice. What I'm trying to do is just to educate you about the world of immigration to Canada and assist you to find your way, go to proper resources, and hopefully succeed in whatever you have in mind. Now, let's first focus on the concept of express entry. Then I will review a little bit about the latest developments in the world of immigration. And obviously, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. Hi, Charity. Good to see you here. Okay, so let me go ahead. So this is the link that I'm discussing. This page on our website discusses the express entry system and especially the minimum requirements for express entry system. As you can see, there's also a YouTube video over there. I tried to explain the express entry system in that video in about 20 minutes. So you can also watch that video. I just posted the link to that video, and I believe that we managed to post it on Facebook and also on YouTube. Later, if you are on other platforms, you can come back. I will post the link below my YouTube video in the future as well. So without further ado, let's talk about the minimum requirements for the express entry system. The first thing that you need to know is that express entry system is a system. It's not an immigration option to Canada. What it does, it covers three major immigration options in Canada. In other words, to enter the pool of express entry, to apply through the express entry system, the first thing first is that you need to qualify for at least one of these three immigration options in Canada. So before even thinking about express entry, before even think about your CRS score and those kinds of calculations, you need to think about whether you meet the minimum requirements for any of these three immigration options. And the minimum requirements constitute also the minimum requirements for express entry system. This is important because when you go on the CRS score calculator on IRCC website, it doesn't tell you whether you qualify for any of these options. So in other words, regardless of whether they qualify or you do not qualify, it calculates your CRS score and gives you the CRS score. But in reality, if you do not qualify for any of those, when you enter the real express entry pool, the system will eject you and will refuse you almost immediately. So before taking that risk, make sure that you meet the minimum requirements. The three immigration options that do exist are the Federal Skilled Worker Class or Federal Skilled Worker Program. We also know this as FSW or FSWC or FSWP, depending on who you ask. The second option is the Canadian Experience Class or Canadian Experience Class. And the third option is Federal Skilled Trades Program or FSTP or FSTC. Keep that in mind that sometimes when you enter the pool of express entry, a province will select you. And by receiving a nomination by a province, your points in the express entry pool will be boosted for up to 600 points. And that will allow you to immigrate to Canada if you accept that invitation by the province. What does that mean? It means that we also have something called PNP express entry, or provincial nominee program express entry. In reality, PNP express entry is based on a combination of the requirements of the province and being able to enter the pool of express entry. So in other words, you may qualify for PNP express entry if only you qualify for any of those three options that I mentioned here. And then later, you also meet the requirements of one of the provinces, and that province decides to invite you. Remember that express entry is for federal immigration, and because the federal government has an agreement with the province of Quebec, if you want to immigrate to the province of Quebec, you need to directly immigrate to Quebec. In other words, express entry covers immigration to every province in Canada, every territory in Canada, with the exception of Quebec. Canada has 10 provinces, so 9 out of those provinces, out of those 10 provinces, is covered by express entry. Canada also has 3 territories, and all those territories are also covered by express entry system. Okay, so what is Federal Skilled Worker Program? Federal Skilled Worker Program is a relatively traditional immigration, economic immigration option to Canada. And based on this program, you can actually will be able to immigrate to Canada based on your education, your work experience, whether you have connections in Canada, whether you have a job offer in Canada, etc. So in other words, you potentially can apply under a federal skilled worker program even if you are outside Canada, even if you do not have any work experience or education experience in Canada. Albeit, it makes it difficult for you if you do not have that association in Canada because your CRS score could eventually drop. But at the end of the day, majority of people who submit their application under the express entry system, they qualify for federal skilled worker class. In other words, about 80% of people who are in the pool of express entry, they are actually either applying purely under federal skilled worker class, or they qualify for federal skilled worker class and another class. So that's important to know. This is still the most popular immigration option to Canada. At the same time, the most competition is under federal skilled worker class. So let's take a look at federal skilled worker class. So if we go back in here, the federal skilled worker class is the first column in this table. And I just quickly explained to you that federal skilled worker class asks for both some minimum requirements, and it has its own point system. So they tried to make it as complicated as possible for you. So what are the minimum requirements for federal skilled worker class? The first requirement, and probably the most important requirement, is that you need to show that you have at least 1 year of full-time work experience, uh, either inside Canada or outside Canada. It doesn't matter where it is. The work experience that you have needs to be under National Occupational Classification 0, A, or B. 0 means managerial positions, A means positions that usually require university education, and B is for positions that they usually require college education or any post-secondary education, that is diploma or sometimes certificate, etc. In some countries we call it associate degree, in some countries we call it post-secondary diploma. At the end of the day, These are the three kind of jobs. You need to show at least 1 year of continuous work experience under one of these classifications. It's important that the job is full-time. It means that you have worked at least 30 hours per week. And then if you have beyond 1 year, obviously you receive more points. So without this job experience, you cannot even apply. Now, when you're applying under the express entry system, if you are a student in Canada and you do not have outside Canada work experience, but while you were studying in Canada, you were working, unfortunately, you cannot count on that for the minimum requirements. But if you, after finishing your studies in Canada, for example, you work under one of these NOC codes, or if outside Canada you have worked under one of these NOC codes, then good for you. You meet the minimum requirements, the first minimum requirements. The other one is in terms of language, you need to take a language test. The only acceptable language tests are for English. There are two tests. You need to take one of them. So that's IELTS General, IELTS General. And the other one is CELPIP G. So CELPIP is usually only available in Canada. We have minor presence of CELPIP outside Canada, but IELTS is a quite famous test, and you pretty much in every country you can take the IELTS test. If you know French, then you need to take TEF Canada or TCF Canada as a language. And again, your language benchmark must be for English CLB 7, for French NCLC 7. You do not need to know both French or English. If you just know one of them, just take one test. But if you know both of them, take one English test and take one French test. CLB stands for Canada Language Benchmark 7. For example, for IELTS General, when we say CLB 7, it means you need to have IELTS 6. It means under every language skill, your minimum band score must be 6. If you have above 6 out of 9 under IELTS, that's amazing. If you are taking CELPIP G, then you need to have a test result of at least a 7 out of 12 under each ability, because CELPIP G scoring is exactly the same as CLB or Canada Language Benchmark. So this is the second minimum requirement. If you have not taken an English test or French test, or you have taken one of those tests, but you do not meet the mandatory CLB 7, unfortunately, you cannot even enter the pool of express entry under federal skilled worker class. In terms of education, if your education has been completed outside Canada or you have outside Canada education, you definitely need to evaluate your highest educational degree or diploma or level, and you need to receive an ECA or educational credentials assessment through one of the organizations that are approved by IRCC, and they know what to do. Depending on which organization you approach, then it would be a different set of requirements, but eventually they create a report and you need to share that report. So if you don't have the ECA report, if you don't have not done your language test, or if you do not have the minimum 1 year of work experience under NOC 0A or B, by the way, the NOC system will change to the tier system most likely in November. So you need to know what is a tier system. I have another article about the tier system there. You do not need to have a job offer for federal skilled worker class, but if you do have a job offer, then that could enhance your points. In terms of certificate of qualifications from a province, you don't need that. And in terms of selection points, you also need to meet at least 67 points out of 100 points. And the point is based on your work experience, your age, your language abilities, whether you have a job offer in Canada or not, or adaptability criteria such as work experience in Canada, having family members in Canada, education in Canada, or your spouse's or common law partner points. If you do not meet the minimum requirements of 67 points out of 100 points, unfortunately, your application will be refused. Now, I have another article that explains the point system under the express entry system. The good news is that we have also developed a calculator for you. So if you like, you can open the FSW calculator on our website, and this will calculate your points. Obviously, it is an unofficial calculator. It's not the official calculator of IRCC. We have done our best to be very accurate. And also, when you do use the calculator, you do not share your information with us. At the end of calculations, if you wish to get in touch with us, you can fill out your information and submit it. But if you don't wish to share the information with us, you can freely use this calculator for your benefit. So how you find the calculator? It's very easy. You can either search it here, or as I mentioned, go to for example, when you're looking at the minimum requirements, you can find it, or under the articles, if you just look up calculator, we have two calculators. One is for OINP ES, and the other one is for federal skilled worker, this one. And when you click here, it will take you to the calculator. Okay, so let's go back to the minimum requirements for. So if you do not meet those, you do not qualify for FSW. By the way, sometimes you may qualify for more than one option. That's absolutely fine. But if the minimum is to qualify for at least one. And in terms of settlement funds, if you have a job offer in Canada, valid job offer in Canada, it means LMIA supported job offer in Canada, then you do not need to show settlement funds. But if you do not have a job offer, then you need to show that you meet the minimum requirements under LICO. Now, if you look at LICO 2022, for example, the minimum funds for one person is $13,310. If you are two people, for example, two spouses, it's $16,570. If your family is three people, then you need to show $20,371. By the way, these are Canadian dollars. Okay. Before I move forward, let me see, look at our questions. Okay, so we have a couple of questions. Please hold on to your questions, and then when I come back, I will definitely go through all the questions. I see questions from LinkedIn, from YouTube. So please stay live, and I will definitely get back to you about the questions. Okay, so that's the first option. So the minimum requirements for federal skilled worker. If you do not meet the minimum requirements for a federal skilled worker, another option, if you meet the minimum requirements for Canadian experience class. The good news is that neither Canadian experience class nor federal skilled trades class, they don't have a point system. They just have minimum requirements. So if you meet the minimum requirements of any of those two, then you can enter the pool of express entry. In terms of work experience for Canadian work experience class, you need to have at least 1 year of full-time work experience under NOC 0A or B. Unlike the federal skilled worker, you do not need to have continuous work experience. So it could be broken. That's absolutely fine. And also, it could be multiple jobs with multiple employers. That's absolutely fine. Keep that in mind that when we say full-time job, it means at least 30 hours per week or equivalent to that. For example, if you have been working 15 hours per week, then you need to work 2 years to meet the requirements of 1 year of work experience. Unfortunately, if you work more than 30 hours per week, it doesn't squeeze the number of hours that you need to work. So in total, you need to collect at least 1,560 hours of work in at least 12 months. If under 12 months, it's not acceptable. Under 1,560 hours is not acceptable. And this is throughout acceptable for federal skilled worker and Canadian experience class. The major difference is that under federal skilled worker, you need to have continuous work experience under one specific NOC code. Under the Canadian experience class, it could be multiple NOC codes and it could be broken. But collectively, in the past 3 years, you need to have at least 1 year of full-time work experience that is under NOC 0A or B. Unfortunately, NOC C and D are not acceptable. In terms of language, it is mandatory to take the language test. The difference is that if your job experience was under NOC 0 or A, then the minimum requirements is the same as federal skilled worker, which is CLB 7. But if the job is NOC B or C, then the minimum requirements is CLB 5. So that's much better. Keep that in mind though. Although you can enter the pool of express entry with a CLB5 under Canadian experience class, but your score will be very low and you cannot compete with the rest of the population. So you have to be very careful with that. In terms of education, just like federal skilled worker class, if you have outside Canada education, you need to receive the ECA report. Job offer from Canada is not mandatory for this program. However, if you do have a job offer in Canada, then you will receive extra points on their CRS score. You do not need a certification of qualifications from a Canadian province for Canadian experience class. There is no selection point, and you do not need to show settlement funds, which is amazing. Having said that, when you enter the pool of express entry and you qualify both for CEC and FSWC, there is a chance that, actually not there is a chance, they will definitely ask for settlement funds and you need to show settlement funds. It is in your best interest that you meet the minimum requirements of LICO. Having said that, if you do not meet the minimum requirements of LICO, in theory, there won't be a problem because you are qualified for Canadian experience class. But that would be risky because maybe an officer make a mistake and they refuse your application. So it is in your best interest to show that you meet the minimum fund requirements or settlement funds requirements. Okay, so the next one is about Federal Skilled Trades Program. The Federal Skilled Trades Program is for skilled trades, for people like plumbers, welders, mechanics, this group. So your job experience must be, as a minimum requirement, must be under a special NOC-B job. So not every NOC-B job qualifies you. Those NOC-B jobs that fall under the skilled trades program. And in fact, I have a list of those NOC-B jobs here on our website. If you click on that link, you will see the list of all the jobs here. I'm probably the only website that we have published all these NOC codes. Keep that in mind though, starting from roughly November, we will switch from the old NOC 2016 to NOC 2021, which means that we will switch from a NOC AB 0 CD thing situation to tier system, which I have another article that I showed you. You can read that for more information. In terms of the job experience, you need to show 2 years of job experience, 2 years of full-time job experience in the past 5 years under this program. So for federal skilled worker class, you need to show your job experience in the past 10 years. For Canadian experience class, you need to show your job experience in the past 3 years. For federal skilled trades program, you need to show your job experience in the past 5 years. You need to show that you have accumulated at least 2 years of work experience under a skilled trades program as defined by IRCC. And also in terms of language, you still need to take the test, but the minimum requirement is a CLB5 for speaking and listening and CLB4 for reading and writing. Normally, this means that the CRS score for FSTC applicants is lower than other programs, and that's why they usually cannot compete with Canadian experience class and federal skilled worker class applicants. And before COVID-19, IRCC used to hold 2 draws every year dedicated to federal skilled trades to allow them to be selected by the government. Since COVID-19, I haven't seen any specific draws for a federal skilled trades program. However, some of the provinces have proactively tried to select a skilled trades people from the pool of express entry. For example, a few weeks ago, Ontario invited more than 1,500 skilled trades people from the pool of express entry. And in terms of education, just like the other two programs, you need a CA report for your outside Canada education. For job offer, in fact, the job offer could be mandatory for this program. So in this program, you either need to have certificate of qualifications by province or a job offer. So if you do not have the certificate of qualifications, then it is mandatory for you to receive a job offer from a province. Now, the job offer could be from only one employer or two employers, but they collectively need to show that they are hiring you full time. So if it's one employer, then the job offer must be full time. If there are two employers, each of them can hire you part time, but collectively you need to work in Canada for at least 30 hours per week. Now, if you do not have job offer, your alternative option is to receive certificate of qualifications from a province. It's extremely difficult to receive that. Having said that, if you receive such a thing, and usually it gets involved into taking the Red Seal exam, then you will be able to apply under the Federal Skilled Trades Program. There is no selection point and there is no settlement fines if you have a job offer. But if you do not have job offer, just like federal skilled worker, you need to meet the settlement funds based on LICO. So these are the minimum requirements for these three options. So if I show you the process of express entry system, when you enter the pool of express entry, if you do not meet the requirements of any of those programs, Federal Skilled Worker, Canadian Experience Class, or Federal Skilled Trades, then unfortunately your application will be immediately rejected. You don't want that to happen. That's why you need to first make sure that you meet the minimum requirements. But if you meet the minimum requirements, you will enter the pool of express entry. They will give you a score called CRS score, or Comprehensive Ranking System score. Based on the CRS score, which is between 0 to 1200, you compete with the rest of the population. Right now, the lowest score in the last draw was 504, which is huge, by the way. But hopefully it will drop soon. And then if for some reason while you are in the pool of express entry something happens, for example, your language test expires, changes in your family structure make you ineligible, then they will expel you from the pool of express entry. And if you start to meet the requirements again, you may update your profile and enter the pool of express entry. But if they do not expel you, there are things that can boost your points. As I mentioned, for example, invitation by a province can boost your points. Receiving a job offer can boost your points. Or if you take another language test and your test score is higher and you enter the new test score, then it will boost your points. Also, starting from 2023, the ministers will run some special measures for selecting people from the pool of express entry. So your score could be lower, but still they could invite you to apply. If within 12 months of being in the pool of express entry, they don't invite you, they will expel you from the pool of express entry and you need to start over again. You can enter the pool of express entry again and wait another 12 months. But if they invite you before the expiry of your profile, then you need to do upfront medical exams, submit documents, fill out forms, pay the processing fees. They look into your application. If they find you eligible and admissible, then they will allow you to become a permanent resident of Canada. If you are not eligible based on your documents, or if you are not admissible to Canada, they will refuse your application. So that's the whole process of a typical express entry application. I will also post the link below my YouTube video after this video. Okay, so I'm done with explaining the express entry system. Let me take a look at the questions. And then after the questions, I will talk about the latest updates in the world of immigration to Canada. Okay, Satish asks that, let me see if I have any other questions. Yeah, so the question is that I'm looking for unskilled jobs in Canada. So generally speaking, let me get rid of this. So generally speaking, unskilled jobs, um, it's very difficult to get a work permit. It's almost impossible to get a work permit without having special skills. Because when it comes to labor jobs, we have so many people that they can get those jobs in Canada. And it's unlikely immigration authorities issue you a work permit. We had a program a few years ago called low skilled workers. That was a pilot. It was a failure, and the government stopped that program. They are considering a low skilled work permit again, and there are some organizations that they are pushing for this, but we don't have a special uh, release by the government in terms of when and how they are going to allow us to apply under uh, this potential new program. So most of the jobs that you can secure in Canada and get hired for them are high skilled jobs. They're rarely low skilled jobs. It could happen in exceptional situations, but I don't want to go into the details of that. Also, you need to know that unfortunately, there are so many abuse happening in terms of finding jobs in Canada. So if somebody tells you that they are going to charge you money to find you a job in Canada, just stay away from them. Most of the provinces prohibit receiving money for finding jobs in Canada. And even if a recruitment agency hires you, they need to charge the employer for the find at the job, not the employee for the job that they find. So be very careful with that. Next person says, I need to talk. Okay, so there are ways that you can talk to me. One way is to book a consultation session with me. I will post the link to consultation session later as well. But here is the link on the chat box. Here you go. So you can actually go to this link, and I think it just posted the link on YouTube and Facebook. But at the end of the day, if you go on settler.ca, our website, you can definitely click it on the link and book a consultation session with me. Consultation sessions with me are not free. But I charge $200 Canadian for half an hour of consultation. But if you wish to go through that and make the payment, by all means. If it turns into a retainer agreement, a service agreement, I will happily deduct that amount from the total amount of the service agreement. So that would be about talking to me. You can also fill out our assessment form for free. But we will review every assessment form, but we will only contact people that we believe there is a chance for them. Our team that does the assessment forms, they do not actually offer immigration advice. Eventually, the application needs to go through me to receive to sign a service agreement, etc. But at least the initial assessment could ease the process because we receive so many requests. There have been days that we have received up to 200 requests in a single day about immigration to Canada or assessment forms. That's why if you do not find anything for you, we won't even contact you. But if you book a consultation session with me, that would be a one-on-one session. And of course, I will happily answer your questions and offer you official immigration advice. Okay, now without further ado, let's talk about the latest news in the world of immigration. Okay, here we go. So, one interesting thing that you need to know is that Ontario is the largest province in Canada, but for the very first time, people are moving out of Ontario more than coming inside Ontario. And Ontario, in fact, lost more than 146,000 people. So it looks like that people are preferring to move to provinces such as Alberta and British Columbia now. So this has been for so many reasons. I don't want to go into the details of it, but the provinces that have had net gains in the past few months has been provinces of Nova Scotia, British Columbia, and New Brunswick. Also, as I mentioned, Alberta is number one on the list because Alberta has started a huge campaign to encourage new immigrants to move to Alberta, and also in internal migration between provinces to Alberta. So right now, Alberta, as you can see, is on the top of the list, followed by Nova Scotia, British Columbia, and New Brunswick. And again, usually speaking, Ontario is number one on the list of immigrants, and even internal or inside Canada migration. But that trend has recently reversed. And it's quite fascinating because right now, Ontario has about 400,000 job openings. And that will be a blow to Ontario economy if people are not willing to live in Ontario anymore. So this could change though, but for now, that's the reality of a situation in Ontario. If you are being hired by a Canadian employer, remember that even if you are a foreign national and you are a temporary foreign worker, you still have rights. And in this article on our news site, and by the way, I will post these links below my YouTube video later after we're done with this session. Know your rights. And we have tried to give you links to different websites that offer you information about your rights as a temporary foreign worker. Another piece of news, and I think this is the last one I want to share with you, is that Canada has been identified as number one country that people wish to immigrate to. And this is great for Canada. As you can see, the list of countries in terms of where people want to immigrate to include Canada, New Zealand, Switzerland, Australia, Spain, Italy, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. So that's amazing that Canada is number one, but it also means Canada is five-star immigration destination. It means that there is a huge competition for immigration to Canada. The number of people who want to immigrate to Canada exceed the number of people that Canada accepts as immigrants. And because of that, immigration to Canada is probably the most difficult immigration option that you can find. Regardless, if you're interested, you can book a consultation session with me or fill out our assessment form and we see if you qualify for immigration to Canada. In general, in terms of from the viewpoint of people in the world, which countries are the best countries in the world? Canada ranked 3. Yeah, last year Canada was number 1, but now it has surpassed by Switzerland and Germany, being the best countries in the world. Despite Canada being overall the third best country in the world from the viewpoint of people, we see that it is number one destination for immigration. It's quite interesting to know that United States was ranked number 4 as the best country. However, it's not even in the top 10 list of immigration. And I think part of that is because of what is going on in Canada, is that Canada is a very inclusive country. It allows multiple cultures to be here and respects multiculturalism, etc. And that's great for Canada. And as I mentioned, it's great for immigrants. However, it also means that it could be problematic for applicants because there are many people who want to move to the same country. Now, if you want, you can follow us. Just go to settler.news or the link that I provide here to see the latest news about the world of immigration in Canada. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting courses at Queen's University and also Ashton College. I deliver CPD courses online. I have been a licensed practitioner for almost 12 years. I received my license in January of 2011. I have been active and had clients from 55 different countries in this world so far, actually 56 different countries in this world. And my firm is located in downtown Toronto. We have multiple employees. We actually, our employees and our franchises, we speak 13 different languages, which is amazing. We are the only immigration firm that is B certified. So we are a B certified or certified B corporation, which means that we are an environmentally and diversity friendly, responsible corporation. And this is what I do for life. I'm the author of 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada, which has been identified as a bestseller book under the immigration law in Canada. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, enable notifications, be in touch with us, share our videos. You can visit our website, settler.ca. There are more than 1,000 different articles about the latest developments in the world of Canada, and also different immigration options, resolving problems in immigration, etc. You can certainly also learn from them. I will do on live sessions on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time, which is Toronto time. And then later, I also have live sessions on Sundays. Those live sessions on Sundays will wrap up. Probably this coming Sunday will be the last live Sunday session that I will have. But the fixed time for my live sessions would be Wednesdays, 12 p.m. And I will go live on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube at the same time. Thank you very much for attending this session, and be in touch. Bye for now.